A very good day to Miss Goria and my fellow classmates. My name is Luqman and my teammate is Tokuma. Today we're going to talk about our research topic, which is the effect of sports on athletes' health and well-being. So, what's the problem that causes us to want to research on the effect of sports on athletes' health and well-being? Well, nowadays many children want to grow up and become athletes in the future. That's because athletes earn a lot of money and also have a lot of fans. I believe that many of us dreamed of becoming athletes when we were younger. So what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is many athletes get injured during their athletic career. There have been many cases of severe injuries permanently impact the athlete's health long after their retirement. So we decided to research on whether the sports the athletes play in have an impact on their health and well-being. Here are some examples of injuries that athletes may suffer during their athletic career. As you can see from the slide, they all look quite gruesome. There are two types of injuries, minor injury and major injury. The example of minor injuries are nosebleed and also sprains. Now, major injuries are more severe and may permanently impact an athlete's life long after their retirement. Examples of major injuries are broken leg, ACL, and also concussions. Now I'll pass it on to Tokuma.
So there are two research questions as you can see from the slide. First research question is, does sport cause positive or negative effect to athletes' health and well-being? Second research question is, how does sport affect athletes' health and well-being? There are four questions we asked our participants based on two research questions we asked. What do you play and how often do you exercise or train for tournaments? And what are the positive and negative effects that is caused by competitive sport on your health and well-being? These two questions are related with first research question. First interview question is meant to find out the type of sports the participant competes and how often they train for the competition. The second question is to get the participants' opinion on the positive and negative effects sports cause on their health and well-being. The other two interview questions are, how often do you get injured and do you think those injuries will have a permanent impact on your life and why? Third interview question is to find out how often they get injured and whether this has a link to the type of sport and rate of training. The last question is to see the severity of injury and whether it has a permanent effect on the participant's life in their opinion. We used qualitative method with conducting interviews. Data was collected from 7 athletes from both genders and from all 3 different types of sports, which are non-contact, contact, and collision sports. Participants are chosen from friends of us who have played for district, state, national, or international competition. The reason why we chose them as our participants is because they have played sports in athlete level, which is professional level, and they have been injured several times due to playing sports. From collision sports, our participant plays rugby or ice hockey. From contact sports, we ask participants who play basketball. From non-contact sport, participants are from gymnastics, badminton, or volleyball. So thank you, and now I'm going to pass mic to Luqman.
Thank you, Tokuma. Now for the first research question, does sports cause positive or negative effect on an athlete's health and well-being? Well, after the interview, we found out that sports causes both positive and negative effect to an athlete's health and well-being. The positive effect being the athletes gain more confidence, has more discipline, and is also healthier. And the negative effect being mainly injuries, which brings us to our second research question. Our second research question is, how does sports affect an athlete's health and well-being? As mentioned just now, the main cause of negative effect of sports on health and well-being is injuries. The amount and severity of injuries are influenced by 3 categories, being the type of sports, the level of competition, and also the frequency of training. So now let's talk about the type of sports. There are 3 types of sports, being non-contact, contact, and collision sports. So what's the difference between these 3 types of sports? Non-contact are sports with minimum contact, such as running, swimming, gymnastics, and so on. Contact sports are sports that only have contact when necessary, such as basketball and football. And collision sports are sports that has purposeful contact with big hits, such as rugby and American football. So now I'll give you a rough demonstration on how these kind of sports can affect your body and injury rate and severity. So here are some boxing gloves. Boxing is considered a collision sport as the athletes purposefully give each other large hits. But for the demonstration, we'll roughly explain the three types of sports. So firstly, for non-contact sports, we'll give the example of shadow boxing. As you can see, I'm punching the air, there's no contact. So the impact of force on my joints and my bones are minimal. The max injury that I may suffer after continuously doing this exercise is my chest muscle and also my back muscle. So now for the example of collision. For the example of collision, it will be like this. As you can see, there's a big impact on my bones and also my joints. So the chances of me suffering bone and joint injury are much higher compared to the non-contact sports. Now for contact, it will be a lesser version of the collision. It will most likely just be like this. The chances of having the injury are still the same as collision, but just the injury rate and severity is much lower. So now, moving on, we're going to talk about the level of competition. The level of competition, it will be much different when you represent your school for district tournament, your district for state tournament, your state for national competition, and your nation for international competition. The level of competition will be much more different for an international player representing their nation compared to a school player representing their school. For this example, I will give you these two hand grips. As you can see, one hand grip is at the maximum and one hand grip is at the minimum. So for the minimum hand grip, it's very easy to squeeze down. The chances of me suffering wrist and muscle injury when I squeeze down is much less compared to the max hand grip, where you take a lot more force and power to squeeze down. That shows the level of competition. When the level of competition is higher, you have to train more and practice more for your body to be suitable to compete in the high level. Therefore, the chances and severity of injury is also much higher when compared to lower level of competition. And lastly, the frequency of training. If I play basketball once a week, the chances of me getting injured due to basketball is much less than if I play it every day. And if I play it every day, there will be a larger toll on my body muscle than if I play it one time a week. That's it for the three categories that influence the rate and severity of injuries. I hope it helped you guys understand. In conclusion, sports is good. For us who does not compete in the highest level, sports is very beneficial to our health and well-being. But for athletes competing in the highest level, sports may just bring more harm to their health and well-being than good. Thank you all so much for listening to our presentation. Now it's time for the Q&A.